Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Collective. We got another awesome show. Seb joining us on a Saturday. The world is going crazy.
So good.
um, apologize for the delay in getting us started. We were chirping in the background and kind of lost track of time, but yeah, it's good times. So, how you guys doing? How's life?
Great.
What you guys up to? You're we were talking about the ad from Through Dark with you and Blue Line Syndicate, right? It was the guys that filmed the whole thing.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it so far?
Yeah. So, like I was telling you guys, just aside from the write up, which is a little bit tacky in my opinion, it just needs a little bit of work. I think what they did is they actually went online and basically searched, some material, and some of it is older, some of it is made up by people, and they kind of use that as a bit of a bio instead of saying, can you send us a bio? And I would have sent a very simplistic bio with no tackiness in it. They mentioned my military service in there and whatever. But I asked them if they could reword it a little bit, and then I will repost it basically. So hey, thanks a lot for the 200 followers I got this morning when I woke up. But also, could you reword this because it's tacky?
They should have contacted me. I would have sent them a bio on you.
That
Can you
would be a
imagine?
heck of a bio.
Hey,
Dude, I would have just got my crafty little fingers going. That's for sure.
you're going to end up in a billboard in Times Square if you don't zip it.
You would have woken up this morning not with 200 new subscribers, only 100. But the 100 who subscribed are the kind that you don't want to subscribe to you. That would have been my fun. That's for sure.
Thanks, Shaun. So thoughtful.
Oh, everyone's always so helpful here on the show. Let me tell you. Satch says, "Good morning, Satch."
Morning, Satch.
We got an interesting concept today that I kind of wanted to go into, but before we go anywhere, I do want to mention that everybody should be liking, and speaking of subscribing, we should be subscribing and hitting the notification bell. There's algorithmic
Magic
things that happen with there. Yeah.
Speaking of magic, I should say that thanks, Seb, for joining us. All teasing aside, thanks for joining us on very, very short notice because, as I understand it, this kind of came together super quick as I was chirping at you in my IG live chat just before we came over here. So it's not that I threw the gauntlet down. I just stated publicly that I always appreciate when our friend Seb Lavoie shows up 2 days early instead of Monday, Seb. It's now Saturday, Seb. Yay for the internet.
Yeah, it's all about timing, brother. And
Yeah,
when you asked, I was just getting home and I was actually free for the next hours. So
wow.
No kids' duties, no dog training, no nothing. So I'm good to go.
As luck would have it, well, I appreciate you joining us because you could be doing all kinds of things right now. I do appreciate it. Let's make this one count then, Chance Burles. Bring your A game, buddy. A game.
My A game? Oh no, I'd have to find it. It's so tucked away back there. I don't know. Patrick says, "Good morning, Chance. You'll have to. Everyone will have to excuse me. I'm a little sore. All my movements are very painful."
Oh, that's right. You had your little moment yesterday.
Had my little moment. Yep, 5 hours worth of jujitsu. It was good. Lots of jujitsu. Lots of good stuff. I got absolutely destroyed by one of our black belts who is massive. He's 265 pounds. He's like a tank, basically. And we were doing mount escapes, and I was underneath him. I did not escape. Let me put it that way.
How's your rib cage?
It hurts.
Fantastic.
It's the way it's supposed to be, right? But yeah, it was a really good time. Got to meet some cool stuff, and I talked to the master, Silvio Bering, about coming on the collective. He says, absolutely, he'd love to do that. And then he was like, hey,
awesome.
Why don't you have my dad on too? So we can get Flavio Bering
as
well. 8-degree red and white belt talking about jiu-jitsu. So I'm going to see if I can get him and maybe Chris Howder and
a couple of the neighbors,
Alan Shabaro, and see if we can get that guy and those guys over there and talk about the jits, maybe even Gino. We'll see. Anyway,
get the power hour all organized and then pull on some random, like the Grundage. The Grundage is on right now. He's got 3 BJJ classes under his belt. Get him on there as well. It'll make things spicy.
Yeah, I agree. I always said it would be, or I've heard this a while ago. I think it was like a meme online that was They were talking about the Olympics should always have one like regular Joe
to
and
show
like late night just to see the actual difference between
Contextual, baby.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's really interesting. When people, especially when you're evaluating your own game and you're within the confines of your own dojo or your own school, it's important to realize what happens if you take me and put me in a lineup in the bank. What now? And I think a lot of people cut themselves short on account of that. If you look at people, career people, for example, like cops being the primary culprits, where they don't understand their own value in the public sector because they've been, in the private, in the not the private sector, sorry, in the private sector rather than the public sector. And for them to actually understand what kind of value they bring to the game, they look left and right and they're like, well, okay, this is where I stand in the, in the hierarchy of things. Therefore, this means that I'll be, the same with shoulder to shoulder with everybody else in the private sector, which is not the case at all. Like there's so many charlatans and so many things that people that shouldn't be doing what they're doing, and you realize that when you first go in the private sector and you start seeing it. And so cutting yourself short on account of thinking a certain way because your baseline is the people around you, you kind of need to look around a bit, right? And as you're getting better, so is everybody else. So you're feeling, well, I haven't really changed. No, your entire baseline is elevating. That's what's happening here,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, actually, podcasting is a great example of that. This morning, just before I came on this one, in between my last one, walking in through with my coffee to just come here, and my son Evan said, "Hey, what's going on?" I said, "I just got to go do another potty." He said, "What?" I said, "Oh, I've already done one potty. I'm doing my second live potty." He's like, "Did you just call it a potty?" I was like, "Yeah, that's the only way I can actually do these things. I can't call them podcasts. My head needs to call them potties in order for me to do them." And he said, You're like now you're becoming like a YouTube influencer." I was like, "Don't ever say that word." And so
it's Shaun's favorite word.
That's right. So, the idea being that, my son is kind of teasing me. We're having a little bit of fun, but man, like just 4 months ago, I kind of really sucked at this. Now I just suck a little less, but I do know that I enjoy these conversations, and now they feel kind of normal. Whereas at 4 months ago, they sure as hell didn't feel normal. Yeah, so it is just, sometimes you've got to step out of yourself and look back at the things that you accomplished. Sometimes you've got to like take a moment, like just a big deep breath and think, okay, that's not a bad body of work. It's not that I'm going to cut myself some slack. I'll take a brief moment to recognize that I've improved some small degree and then just keep on charging forward.
Except the only sort of wrongful bits in this entire conversation is that you never really weren't good at communicating. You were always really good at communicating.
Well,
so that's never been a thing. It was always more just like it was for me and everybody else. It's just some fine tuning, right?
Yeah.
What can I do even better? So for me, it started with the hums and then it went into a variety of different things. And now what I'm doing is actually going back in time and looking at the words that I use too often. And I've got a list of them, You
Absolutely. Mean the ums?
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's literally you. The reason that yellow sticky is there is because of you, Seb.
Good.
Yeah, I know, buddy. I know. And that is the point. I mean, we've got to hold ourselves accountable, but our friends have got to hold ourselves accountable. And that does, like, you've never been that hard on me, but you say your stupid little Jedi mind trick words, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I got to stop saying I'm like, what? How did that even happen? What did he just do to me? But it is important that we do our best, of course, and we take a little bit of time to occasionally reflect back on our improvements. But we also got to look at the people around us. Like my friend circle has changed over the last year and a half. For lack of a better term, my business relationships have changed over the last year and a half. And again, no one will notice that except me when I take a moment to just reflect back on that and think, check, keep going.
I think that's really important. We there was a point in my school where we had the same white belts for quite a point in time, quite a extended period of time. that we didn't have any new people coming in. And so they were continually rolling with the higher belts, and they were getting really frustrated because they didn't feel like they were getting anywhere. And we had to continually tell them, like, no, it's all good. Like, you're improving. We're also improving. So there's going to be this kind of a gap there. But they couldn't see it because they weren't actually taking the sec. They had nothing to reference it against. Mm-hmm. And then a new person came in, and they rolled with them for like 2 minutes, and they looked at me and they're like, I get it. I see it. Yeah, roger that. But that the ability to actually to have something to reference off, mm-hmm. It's really important. You got to find those reference points to be able to look back on and say, oh yeah, right. That's where I'm at now. Okay, good. Patrick Grundle says, I'm too shy. So I guess the gruntage is not coming out. Although if we poke him enough, maybe prod him a little bit.
I mean, I know he can't answer this in a meaningful way by I'm too shy. And maybe he was just tongue-in-cheek kidding. But here's what I think. What does shy even mean? I think that you can remove the word shy out of the entire English language if you apply priority. Or if you say to yourself, oh, the fate of the world hinges on me going on the podcast today, the potty. Well, now you've got priority. Now it's being contextualized against, I'm just a little shy versus I got to go do this. So it's the wants versus needs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think he is enjoying what you're talking about.
No doubt.
Also, it kind of speaks to discomfort and doing something that will make you grow, right? So
it's so true.
We can't be banging the drums all day without seeing anybody else jumping on.
Yeah.
So 100%.
True. Tanya has a comment here. I choose chaos by regularly suggesting the day 3 white belts teach a class at TriStar.
I choose chaos.
I'm sure Faraz is pumped about that.
Yeah, sure is. Must be.
Well, so any thoughts or anything before we get into the topic I do for today?
Actually, on this subject of speaking, because Seb has yet again planted another freaking Jedi trick into my little melon, and he was talking about how I have maybe a minor advantage because I could always communicate reasonably well. Yeah, but that's a learned thing, of course. But I didn't think I was actually a great public speaker. And I still don't believe that to be the case, though others will argue that now. And I can kind of see some truth in the fact that I can publicly speak to some degree. But again, I still feel like I'm pretty bad at it. But it's guys like Seb who challenged me to go out and make myself uncomfortable in these moments that I've come to realize that even though I don't feel I'm doing it well, I can see my own growth. And yeah, maybe I could communicate a little bit before I jumped in front of a microphone. But now through a lot of practice, I mean, too much practice, but a lot of practice, I can almost see the growth. But it takes a long time, man. And that's my point. It doesn't matter what I showed up with or what I had hidden inside of me or who was surrounding me, who was encouraging me, who was poking and prodding and leading, whatever. It takes freaking time. And the amount of time it takes me versus the amount of time it takes someone else will probably be different. They may be faster or slower. It's unimportant. What is important right now is making the connection of the two topics, and that is taking a moment to contemplate what you've accomplished over a period of time. Half a year, 2 years, 3 months, whatever. Giver, and then pause, reflect for about 30 seconds. Don't waste a whole pile of time patting yourself on the back, and then just keep charging forward.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a very, very key point in a lot of things is the recognizing that what you've actually done. Not even the concept of like how much you've done kind of lends itself towards ego in terms of I've done so much and that doesn't really matter. But I think just seeing physically what you have physically done. Mm-hmm. I have taken these courses. I have done this, so on, and then accepting of that and then moving forward. I think that's great. I know my journey into speaking started with a CF 100 leaf pass when I was trying to teach on PLQ. And it was not a great class. I did not do very well, and I'm good with that. But I was able to take the lessons from that and apply it to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. You just keep building on it over time, which is key. Any other thoughts before we jump into the topic at hand? It kind of applies.
What? I threw that like free one out there like it was just a big old chewy bone to chew on and no one's jumping on that? What?
Do you have any further thoughts on it there, Shaun?
Nah, I just thought I'd chuck it out there, see if we could get some sort of ideas
you
going
know,
on that.
here's the thing that I used to do when I started podcasting, when I started being a guest speaker, and a lot of people, and myself included, really resented hearing my own voice when I did certain things. Being ESL also compounded issues for me, because depending what my tonality was, depending if I put an S where there shouldn't be or an H where there shouldn't be, or whatever the case may be, which are all things that I continue to do, even though I tried my best not to do it, or how prominent my accent was in relation to, the last podcast or the next one. And all those things were factoring into my self-assessment of whatever it is I was doing. So one of the things that I did, in the beginning, was to listen to my podcast 2 to 3 to 4 times in a row in my car with the proper audio and everything, just to see what I was doing and what was clearly either wrong in terms of linguistic or my tonality or my tempo or any of those things. And I really said, set myself to try to at least correct one of those on the next one while maintaining the same level of delivery, right? And then I would do it, then I would listen to it 3 or 4 times, and I would be like, okay, I did a pretty good job, I could have done better, I'm still using too many of those words, I'm my non-verbal, so my, what I do with my hands or where I look or whatever is very distracting, what I'm wearing is distracting, all those things. So I was really breaking down all of the things that affected my performance. But more importantly, if I'm driving somewhere, would I spend an hour listening to this dude? Like, does he have the tonality, the tempo and everything that's conducive to me spending an hour listening to this person? If the answer is no, then fix it, right? And that's what I did. And there was a ton of work, and a lot of people that podcast or even host podcasts have said to me before, I never listen to myself. I can't stand hearing myself. Well, that's a great strategy to be exactly where you are.
Congratulations. Yeah. How easy is that?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's one of the struggles with podcasting in general, is being able to hear your own voice, because it is different audio wise than you hear it in your head, right? It's not the same. And it's kind of humorous. I do have a question for you on this one, though, because you just spoke at the We Defy Foundation, right? And you were talking about what you want to do and all these things. But what do you think the major difference is between, say, your first speaking event versus that one? Like, would you say the biggest difference is now?
Sorry, I didn't do a speaking engagement at We Defy. I was literally there to study, to learn, to listen, and there was a lot of good speakers, and I took it all in. I didn't really do any public speaking there. That wasn't my gig. But I've done, obviously, many, and I still do. My June is packed with these kinds of events. I would say that fundamentally, I haven't really changed, in that I've always been able to connect with whoever I speak to generally, unless they really, there's a wall there for whatever reason. And even if there is a wall, a lot of the times I will end up sort of going through it. I remember I was in Alberta on that Stone Houses Realty big speaking gig that
was in Banff, wasn't it?
Yeah, in Banff, and it was a beautiful setup, but it was packed.
Yeah.
It was packed with realtors, people that are outside my scope of subject matter expertise, so to speak. But I was talking to mindset and a variety of different things, which is very correlatable to what they're doing. And one of the guys said to me, when I saw your name and saw what you look like and everything, I thought to myself, what in the hell is this guy can possibly bring to this convention, and why am I still here? And he goes, as soon as you were done speaking, he turned over to his wife and he said, this was an incredibly impactful conversation, speaking engagement, so to speak. So he came to me after and he said, I apologize for what I was thinking, because clearly it was 100%, So anyways, I mean, and I'm sure inversely other people might have thought the other way around, but they don't tell you. But the point is, I think for me, always had the ability to adapt, always had the ability to connect with people. And so it was more about refining the product. Like, what am I actually speaking about, and how do I not go on tangents and eat away at some very precious time that I might be allocated, right? So if you say, okay, you're going to go in for an hour, it's nothing for me to talk for 3 thinking that was 1. Right, like, so I really have to have a plan. It's nice, I can wing conversations if you're asking me questions, but if you're asking me to lead a guest speaking engagement, and to continue acting whether or not there's interaction with the crowd, then I need to be more structured. And so that's what I really started being much better at. And even if it's utilizing 4 slides or 6 slides on a slideshow, so that I keep myself in check, because otherwise I can really have a hand grenade type approach to communication.
Hand grenade type. I love that. It just,
Yeah,
the mental image of a hand grenade going off in terms of speaking is kind of hilarious. It's
you have improved a whole lot, though, buddy. I mean, I remember watching your podcasts, or when you were speaking a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, kind of thing, and it was the English second language that was, I feel, a large part of it. But even if that hadn't been part of the equation, and I know that it's a learning process.
Mm-hmm.
As you've already clearly stated, it's a refining process. And just as you did, I do the same thing. I did it yesterday, and I'll do it today, as I've done ever since I started this poddy thing. For me, I do it, and then I listen to it every day. So yesterday I had to listen to another 2 hours of myself on top of 2 hours of myself. And so I don't now listen to the tonal mistakes that I make, or the ums and ahs that I make. I've already categorized those as things that are notable and I can trim down. My job now, as I review myself, is to, Seb's point, add more value, be more clear with what I'm trying to state. Even if I've got nothing to state, I'm trying to do things with my time, because I recognize that people's time is precious and I'm not here to waste it. And so I'd rather bounce out of a conversation, end a potty early, than just drag it out saying not too much. I know there has to be a balance between delivering entertainment to some degree, or storytelling, or engagement, other than just bam, 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 ripping out all the facts and details on how to do things better. There has to be a balance. I think that's the refining process that I'm still trying to learn right now, is each moment has a sweet spot, and that's always a moving target in every conversation.
Yeah, I observed such an incredible difference between, you 6 months ago even, and now. And like I said, for me, you were always good. I always enjoyed listening to you. I always did it, and I listened to every single thing you put out. But now, the ability that you have to, like, take something and make it truly deep and meaningful is, like, unmatched. Like, that's really good. It's really good now. So it's
Oh, thanks, man.
it makes for incredible back and forth, right? When somebody has the ability to hone in on something like this, you can really get into the important stuff, so to speak.
Yeah, and thanks for saying that. And by the way, thanks for helping me figure out how to say thanks. Because there was there was a time when I struggled even just saying, like, accepting a pat on the back like that.
Mhm.
I would have just bypassed that. I right now would be talking about, hey, did you see what's going on over on the moon right now?
Reverse.
That's right. So
Be
thanks,
turning
man.
into me, squirrel. We do have a couple comments here. Alexander says, Seb, your accent adds to your speaking, makes you more interesting to listen to.
Thanks, honey.
There you
go. Oh, right. We've got a ringer in the crowd.
There's a little bit of bias there.
Yeah, my wife just came in from a run. I'll get her to quickly type something but she'll type it about you. It'll be like, Seb's such a fascinating guy. I wish he was on The Collective more often than my husband.
Well, there's definitely some ringers out there. It's okay. Tanya then says, we as listeners appreciate the care and work you put into proper elocution. It indicates you respect the craft and the listener's time. I think, and exactly what you're just saying, is that time is precious. And we have to appreciate that when you're speaking or on a podcast or whatever, is that if somebody's taking the time to listen, they're physically taking that time and they're using it on you. So respect
That's
it. I
right.
think
Oh, and
that's
by the
key.
way, listen, this is not just a selfless act. So when I'm speaking in these formats, of course I'm doing my best for anyone who's listening. But by the way, it's not just selfless. I've turned it into a game.
Mhm.
Like I just gamify, as I've said before. I've just gamified this thing. Now it's not that I try to amuse myself, like I've got a sub routine. I'm trying to do this, but at the same time, I'm trying to find little hooks for me to make it fun and engaging and challenging and tricky and challenge all of the stuff. So I'm looking for ways to just even sometimes incorporate a weird little word that amuses me that isn't going to detract from anyone else other than someone out there who might see it or hear it and think, oh, that was good. So I'm trying to gamify all kinds of things, this being one of them for me.
Yeah, and I think would be surmised to not mention the progression of chances.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
man,
sure.
like think of this in the very, very tool for the toolbox podcast I listened to compared to now. It is absolutely asinine, the progression and the improvement that happened there. And if you don't believe me, go ahead and listen to one. But I mean, that has to be. I mean, that's a result
It's a big story.
spending time on the mic and doing all the things that you needed to do in order to get that done. So kudos to you.
Yeah,
Well, thank
personal
you.
work, but also being surrounded by
Sure.
like good people. You
Sure.
know, like
Sure.
I forget who it was that was talking about what a privilege it is for Chance Burles to be meeting some of the people that he's meeting. Who
I
was
think
that?
it was you.
I may have been.
So
And
make
some other people as well, by the way.
So make
So
sure you're on your game, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
yeah, I mean, like you got to make good on the gifts that you've got. And so the gifts that you've got right now are not just you, but me, all of us. The
Mhm.
gifts that we all have are the guests that we have. They're the
100%.
gifts. And I don't ever want to look a gift horse in the mouth.
No.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to do that. Do you know where that comes from?
I don't know its origin, but I do understand what it means, of course. I mean, someone's gifting you a horse, you don't start medically checking it to see if it's a worthy gift or not and say, whoa, his teeth are off. You take your horse back, mister.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's the old the gratitude, the endless gratitude. And I mean, for me, after doing this, I've been on over like 80 podcasts by now, and there's still people that listen to podcast number 1 that are still listening somehow, which blows my mind. And of course, what I'm trying to do and what I try to take on myself to do is to elaborate my knowledge base, is to elaborate my skill set, is to move into other areas, not areas of complete discomfort, the things I'm familiar with, but things I haven't explored nearly as in depth. And just for myself to learn and be better, on account of those that are still around, giving me their time. If you listen to say 40 of my 80 podcasts right now, you spend over 80 hours listening to me. That is something that I can never take for granted. That is something
Right.
that I absolutely I'm not entitled to at all. That's something that, is a gift to me. So what am I doing to make this what it needs to be?
That's a key.
Yeah.
It's a key, very key point. Is that it really is as much as this is fun for all of us, right? Like we get to sit around and chat with each other and hang out with our friends and like, yeah, it's good times. It is a responsibility as well, and that, as you're saying, there's a gift of the guests, there's a gift of new information, there's a gift of new experiences, there's the gift of just pushing yourself past your own boundaries. But it's only there if we actually recognize it. Right. And if we don't take the time to recognize that that is a gift and that we should be utilizing it to the best of our ability when we're, given a new opportunity or a new realm to go down, like this coffee here, this is you have to take it as an opportunity, because if you don't, then it's just drudgery. And I mean, Shaun's and yourself, Seb, have talked about drudgery. Is that it just kills the drive, kills the enjoyment, it kills the process, it kills so much of what's available to you. So it's very important.
So you said a couple of key things there. One of them being, you get to do this, is how I paraphrased it in my mind. I get to do this.
That's right.
Listen, I wish I had $1 for every time I've seen that typed on Instagram. I get to do this. Like it's some sort of live, laugh, love quaint saying that's hangs above your pantry. Like it's spit out without any thought. I get to do this. I get to do this. It's almost like a check mark of I did something. Thinking it isn't doing it. And so when you're doing it, you should be thinking about how you managed to get there doing it and where you're going to take it, not just a quaint saying of, I get to do this. It's got to be more than that. And so I find that this statement's being thrown out there so casually now, as if it's a comma in a sentence.
I think it's also it's become a kind of an attempt to rein in the original concept, right? Because the concept of I get to do this is it's a statement of gratitude, right? And the fact that I physically get to this is awesome. This is awesome.
I think that's how it originated.
That's what I mean. And then now that it's being used so often, it's an attempt to kind of grab onto the edges of that without feeling the actual gratitude, right? Or if you're not feeling gracious about it, and you're like, well, just, I get to do this. Okay, I get to do this. And it's not so much
I begrudgingly, get to do this.
Exactly. Right. So it's when you can truly be gracious in that moment and be like, oh yeah, I literally get to do this. There was a moment when we were talking with, I think it was Chris Howder, where I was like, this is freaking insane. This is insane to me that I'm sitting here talking with Chris Howder, but here we are. This is awesome. Cool. And, I can get back into it, but there is a moment of gratitude as well as future moments of gratitude that you have to, in a very similar manner that you can look back on your field of work or on your, the totality of your work, your body of work that you can look at that in the same manner. You have to be able to take gratitude in those moments and then carry on. It's not like sit in it and be like, oh, I'm freaking amazing. Because that would not be good.
The way I kind of look at it is gratitude has a cost. You get to have it. Now what? What do I do to pay back what's being handed to me here? Whether or not I have a say or a responsibility in making that happen and manifesting it is irrelevant. What I want to know is, what can I do? I'm grateful. That's cool. Now, what can I do to essentially build up on that, grateful feeling that I have? Just because otherwise,
I like that, man.
Just like anything else, right? Gratitude turns into complacency eventually when it's been around and you haven't done anything to earn it. It becomes something that is now expected, and you can really slide into some slippery slope without even realizing it in the subconscious way. And so for me, it's all about every single time. Yes, I'm grateful that I get to do this, but what is the cost associated with it? What do I need to do to pay back?
I like that a lot.
That's killer. Let's just end it here.
Yeah,
all right, we'll see you on Monday, Seb.
Shut her down. I had this really great image as you were speaking, Seb, about this. So a little while ago, I was talking about a Jocko video that he made. It was like the count is 0. Every day you wake up, the count is 0, right? And as you were talking, I was thinking to myself that is the gratitude button on that counter. That's what resets it. Where you go from, I'm doing all this stuff, I'm awesome doing these things, and I can count and get all my tallies out and da-da-da-da-da. And then at the end of the day, you're like, that was awesome. Click, count is 0. You start over in the morning. And then you work to make sure that you can have gratitude that next day. And so I just that little mental image of going, reset, thank you very much, get back to work, kind of deal.
Absolutely. And it transfers right into, if you look at the special operation field, whether military or police or any of those other units, earn your spot every day.
Dude, you beat me to it.
Earn your spot every single day. A lot of people are like, well, once I'm done with selection, once I'm on a team, once I'm doing this, once I'm doing that, it's like you see this as a destination. It never ends. It never ends. You have to earn it every day. And the day that you get too tired to earn it every day is the time to go.
The beautiful irony of it is you don't understand it until you get there. And I know you've got there. So you understand it. I got there. I understand it. But you don't understand it until you're there. And I found a funny little moment as this is going back to April 1st, so the 30th anniversary of JTF2. We're at the big fancy ball. We're in the lineup, just about to step into the evening's event, and there was a couple of young bucks in front of me, and they were just about to be badged. So they just finished their selection course. It was the culmination moment. This was the big night for them. And so the young fellas standing in front of me, one guy says to the other guy, "So what do you think?" And the other guy looks at that one and says, "This is the big day. It's game day." And all I thought was, as you work towards game day, you think that when game day shows up, you've made it. It's game day. We're here, baby. Actually, that's just the start.
Mhm.
It's like you made it to the game, but go grab a bench, bring me the water, earn your way. It's literally that reset button. You're at day 0. You didn't make it. You just started. And so it is funny that even at the highest levels in any service related industry, the moment that you hit the top, you should be thinking, not everyone does if it's not enforced, but you should be thinking, reset, time to earn my way.
Yeah. I can't remember who said this initially when I first heard it. It might have been Seb, but they were talking about runners on a start line, right? So at the Olympics, you got your 100-meter sprint, and even the grand finale, that last 100-meter dash to see who gets the gold medal and so on and so forth. When you line up there, every single other person on that line has done as much, if not more, work than you. And so that point in time, when you get up on that start line, that's not the point to say, "Sweet, I made it." Right? That's the time to give absolutely everything you got. And I didn't make it to the teams. I didn't even try. So I can't say 100% on this one, but I do recognize now how little I knew back then, and that now every day I'm earning my spot. At least I hope I am.
Man,
That's the plan.
I look back and I realize how little I knew, and I actually made it. I just wish I would have known more. I wish I could have understood more about making it. And when I made it, I wish I could have understood more about what it means to make it. And there's many things that I wish I understood better back then. But I don't think you ever understand everything. All you do is do your best, looking for the outcome that you want. Years later, you might get to reflect back on it and think, "Oh, lesson learned, do it better next time," et cetera, et cetera. But that's life, man. You just do your best.
Yeah, I like that concept, Shaun, because you know, if you understand the actual reasons why you're doing certain things, and this could be applicable to anything from jiu-jitsu to absolutely anything, then the behavior becomes repeatable. You can, and not only repeatable when you see the right set of circumstances, but you can actually create the right set of circumstances so that you may repeat it, you know? And so you're not controlling, you're not reactive. You're no longer just reacting to the circumstances around you. You are creating the circumstances around you so that you may impart that piece of you that you understand well. You know, so for me, when people say, "Is there value in teaching jiu-jitsu," for example, that's what happened to me. I used to be very instinctive with my game, and I was able to do things, and I didn't know why I was able to do them. So I did things, and they looked pretty, but when you asked me why I was doing them, I didn't really know how to articulate it. And when I started teaching as a purple belt, I started realizing, and I started understanding and breaking down what I was doing. As soon as I did that, I was able to replicate. I was able to create the circumstances that would allow me to do it. I was able to, but this is a metaphorical segue with everything else in life, but it's exactly the same. The more you understand, the more you can replicate, the more you can fix, the more you can elevate. All of
Agreed.
But
you got to put yourself there.
Yep.
You got to put yourself in that spot between 4-stripe blue belt and 1-stripe purple belt, or whatever that is to everyone else out there in their own journey. You shape that moment. We all create that moment. The only reason that you were there is because at one point you thought, "I'm going to go try BJJ." And I was just listening to Jim Carrey this morning, a little clip on the IG, and he had a little piece. He's wearing a yellow gown and a big goofy yellow hat, and he's at some sort of grad ceremony, probably university or whatever the case is. He's being asked to speak as the guest speaker, I believe. Anyway, he goes into this little conversation with the microphone where he's telling everyone the things that he's learned in life. And basically, I'll paraphrase it, and it goes as such. Man, don't let life happen to you. Shape it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I mean, honestly, if we could all be real, that's what we do. We shape this existence. It's just whether you knowingly do it or not, whether you're consciously aware of you can shape it, or whether you just think you're a victim to chance.
Precisely.
Not pearls.
I was going to say the white belts on the mats are victims to me for sure, but that's about
really interesting too with the victim mentality is there's a lot more that isn't been said about the victim mentality and its implication with neuroscience, for example, where essentially if you are to set all of your power and all of your foresight and all of the anticipatory rewards step by step towards a goal that you've established for yourself, you are going to create circumstances that will enable certain things to basically materialize so that you can achieve that goal. That's the manifestation piece. And you're doing that. You can do that. The problem with that is if you do it the other way around, you're also doing that. And so if you're a victim in life, you are literally going to proliferate that victim mentality. And once you do that, so is everything that comes along with it, i.e. being reoffended against, so to speak, right? And so it's such a powerful tool. And a lot of people don't realize how actually very destructive it can be. And so I think it's important to understand, like, we have so much control. I think it's the greatest news. When I heard that the first time, I was like, this is the greatest news. You mean to tell me that I actually have control over my life? This, to a certain extent, we're not talking about death or anything that can happen. I mean, but I have a control on how I'm going to react to those things. So that's a lot of control to begin with. And I just, I think, and you're starting to see a shift, right? Because I think we've gone so far the other way, in a societal context.
Yeah.
I think that you're really starting to see a shift. And again, but what do humans do, right? If it's hot in my room, I'm gonna freaking crank the AC. If it's cold, I'm gonna turn the heat until the fire comes out of the freaking baseboard heaters. It's like, hey, stay moderated somewhere,
right.
Like stop overcompensating. And now we're back to the other thing. And now we're,
I heard there was a line it wasn't a very good movie. I think it was 7 Days, 7 Nights that had like Kevin Costner in it, I think. Not Kevin Costner, Harrison Ford. Anyway, doesn't matter. He was a pilot. He was like, it was near the end of the movie. He was wounded. He was bleeding out, and he was starting to fade away. And the female lead had to fly the plane.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things he said regularly was like, as he was fading out,
choke on a pretzel, and it opened him up.
I think
he'd
gotten
bleeding
shot.
Out. Or...
I think that's what it was. There was a whole thing. I can't remember the whole movie, but I remember this one spot, and I thought it was fantastic because as he was fading away, he just kept saying small corrections, small corrections, small corrections, small corrections, and then he kind of passed out from whatever.
Pretzel.
But it's such a great key to life, small corrections, because if you're making huge leaps, you can't really figure out what the actual problems are. You can't figure out what the small things that led to the big things that get you where you're going, right? If you have a problem with running and all you do is walk or sprint, like how can you tell what's the problem? Is it your feet? Is it your stride? Is it your Is it your lungs? Could be anything. So I think that's a really key thing, is to really focus small corrections, little ones.
Like how many times have you heard me say this? Recalibrating someone, just a little nudge, little poke, little push. I'm not trying to change someone 180 degrees. I'm just recalibrating them. I mean, I say it all the time, but somehow people aren't, what, do you think they're not open to the idea of it's just a little nudge, it's just a little tweak? Do you think that there's a large normative population out there that believes that in order to make a change, they've got to take off a completely one hat and put on a completely different hat, as if that's the change? Do you think that that's what's going on?
Yes, because I think what's happened is the concept that you have to do something step by step implies that you're going to have to spend a lot of time doing it and effort. Whereas if a really big change is required, you either have a cop out and that you don't have to take it on because it's too labor intensive, or you find an instant gratification solving the problem right away, right? And so it's those two extremes. You're either don't have to do anything about it, or you have to do everything about it. It's how people see it, and both of those scenarios are not preferable scenarios for them. The longer investment is very daunting, and that's just the way life is. But the fact is, and what people forget is, in 3 years from now, you're going to be struggling with the exact same things, except you'll be 3 years older.
Yeah.
Like nothing's changed, so it's not like it's going anywhere. So if you're lucky and privileged enough to still be alive, and you've actually taken some step forward, what you're going to do is realize that 2 years from now, you've made giant leaps in the direction of travel. Whereas if you don't do it, you'll get up 2 years from now, no change,
There's also, I think I'm going to make this quick statement, then we got a question here that the panel would like, or the viewers would like answered. But I think a lot of it comes from the concept of, when you see somebody else doing something that you want, right? I want to be tier 1. That guy's awesome. And you have to either accept that you are not awesome at this moment and then build towards it, as you're saying, right? Take that long-term look of it. Or say, I could just be a new person, right? So it's like, I'm driving this really crummy car. Well, that guy's got a Ferrari, and if I just had a Ferrari, sweet, everything would be good to go. And it's not, as you said, you could have absolutely no skill in driving and be put into a Ferrari and you'll crash it, right? You don't know how to drive it. It takes skill. It takes practice. It takes time. It takes development. It takes investment in yourself. And over time, guess what? You will be a different person, right? In 2 years of really solid work, you won't be the same person you were 2 years ago. And I think that's the threshold that most people aren't quite grasping, is the fact that you're going to change anyway. Do you want to change in the negative pattern over time and do absolutely nothing, or do you want to change in a positive pattern over time and do something? Now we do have a question.
Sorry, I need to add to that, because I would like to just state some facts so that we can apply theoretical model or thought construct to this actually works. Because out of the three of us right now, hands up anyone who thinks that they knew we'd all be on this podcast today 30 years ago. None of us. None of us thought that we would ever be doing this. I never thought I'd drive a Ferrari, and yet I have. And so the idea being that your outcomes are a result of your inputs, all the work that you've put in over the decades. This is not luck. This is not chance other than chance burls. This is an outcome of input, of work, of focus, discipline, execution, knowing that there's a general direction that we're headed, though we don't know what it looks like. It will be recalibrated as we move forward, as it has been over the last 4 months. But I don't know what it'll look like a year from now. And a year from now, here's what we will be doing: shrugging our shoulders and laughing and thinking, who knew? But that's a result of work. And that goes back to what we were kind of talking about at the start of, sometimes you just got to take a moment, even if it's only 30 seconds. You don't have to turn it into a big pat on the back moment, but you just got to recognize the growth, the journey, the direction, the difference, the delta that has occurred over a period of time, so that you can then contextualize against that and then move forward recalibrated.
100%. Quick question. We should have enough time to go through this one here, but I do want to run through this. So Alexander was laughing about your statement earlier that she was biased, just so you know. And then Satch went on with, you're also super handsome, Seb. Dreamy. So
yeah,
take that as you will. So Tanya asked a question, though. What are your thoughts on earn your spot every day in regards to relationships. Pleading the fifth is also permitted. Now, before I get to this, Alexandra also said, "I second Tanya's comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that with respect to relationships." So, earning your spot every day in relationships. What do you think, Seb? Put you on the fire.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% wholeheartedly believe that. And I can also tell you that I 100% did not do that in several of my previous relationships. This is so I'm not going to stand here throwing a rock in a glass house, but it is a fact. It needs to happen. That complacency will set in. And I don't care how aware you are that it has the potential or has the potential to happen, you will still do it, especially if the person that you're with is a very accommodating, very and there's certain character traits that are certainly more conducive to the other person taking you for granted, and generally that makes you a really good person and a really good mate. And it's the other person that's obviously taking advantage of these qualities that you're exemplifying. And so for me now, and this applies to friendship, it applies to my girls, the kids, whatever. And so what have I done today to earn my spot? Like I'm not a dad. I'm a dad. I'm as much of a dad as I was in the last time I interacted with my daughters, right? What are some of the things that I brought to their lives? What are some of the things that I brought to the journey? And what am I doing today? Is it a matter of sending a text saying love you, thinking of you, about you, or is it me driving her to cello at 2:00 or whatever the case may be, and having that conversation on the way there? It's the same with romantic relationship. You absolutely have to earn your spot every day, and that's by being the best version of yourself. It's not in the codependency type of endeavor. What I am talking about is if I'm focusing on being the best version of myself and consistently paying back for the gratitude that I feel in relation to my relationship. And if you don't, I start questioning why you don't and what are some of the things that you're overlooking. Then you can really invest in the relationship and invest in yourself so that you're a better person, a better partner.
Absolutely. Shaun, thoughts?
Well, I would like to take the easy route and just say this. I agree with exactly what Seb just said. That's the easy route. And I'm not going to build off it too much because it's easy for me to say that's my story as well. 100%. That is exactly how my life has unfolded. I'm in my second marriage now. And the first marriage failure was probably all my fault / a tiny bit of the team's fault. But mostly my fault. And so, other relationships have mostly been my fault / whatever I had going on fault. And so I'll take the bulk of all of the blame. But to Seb's point, it is a active daily pursuit where, just like anything, if I've got to go get better on the bike, I've got to get better at other things. If I got to get better on the mats, I've got to get better at other things. It's not all just physical activity, and it's not all just reading. It's the people that are in front of us.
It's also not always going to work, right? You might try your hardest and you might, really do your best and it'll fail and it'll explode in your face. And you'll be like, well, dang. Okay. And then you'll wake up the next morning and do it again and do it again. And I mean, I've experienced a number of negative days where I let my emotions get to the best of me. I let my PTS issues get beyond where I should have. Like lots of issues that were definitely my fault that I laid the groundwork for and have to deal with the consequences of. But you still got to wake up the next morning and do your best. And you still got to wake up the next morning and earn that spot, because once you stop earning that spot either gets taken by somebody else or it's gone. And that's just part of it.
Well, the important distinction there is that if you're blowing it right now, you're definitely going to have regret if you're not doing your best. If you're blowing it right now and you're doing your best, you'll have far less regret
for sure
in the years to follow. So invest in yourself, invest in your future self, 10 years from now self, by just literally doing your best. And irrespective of what happens, if it all goes full sideways, 10 years from now, you'll be able to look back and think, well, I was doing my best, and I wish it hadn't have played out that way, but I couldn't really see a better way to do it at that time. That really reduces the sting of regret.
For sure.
And another really important piece of this, and I'm totally in line with that. Um, it was so compelling and amazing, and my brain has been doing that so much lately. It had to do with as soon as it comes back, I'll fire it back.
Okay. Well, we do have a comment from Satch. He says, "Sounds like you guys are saying you apply a growth mindset to everything you do: work, relationship, fitness, mental, etc." I think that's pretty accurate. As long as you're pushing to do better in everything you do, yeah, I think you'll eventually get better, regardless. Any thought? You got it? He's got it.
I got it back. So basically, what I was going to say is, I think complacency starts long before the actual relationship is, cemented and solidified, so to speak. It starts long before that. And when you start looking at some of the very North American concepts, such as, being with one partner for the rest of your life and doing all of those things, as soon as you tell yourself, I'm with my partner, and now we lock the deal down, and now I'm with this person all the way to the end of my life and never anybody else again, like, without considering that life has a say in this, and that time can come to an abrupt end at any given time for a variety of different reasons. You treat it very differently. It's like you just wrote this off. You just wrote life off. You just wrote what has the potential to happen on account of you've already achieved the outcome in your mind, which means that theoretically you really don't have to do anything to get to it because you've already there. But life isn't that sanitized, and we know that. So for me now, it's like, how can I be the best version of myself? You be the best version of yourself, and we walk together for as long as life wants us to be, and you will realize that you are more likely to have an extended, successful relationship than you are if you take it for granted right from the start, even though the intent was never there in the first place.
I've read many, many, many stories of people who, their spouse got killed in a car accident on the day, and they were like, "Oh, we had a fight the day before, and now it's all my fault." And there's all kinds of those things. And there was, I think it was the Uvalde shooting, down in Texas there. And I dropped my kids off at school that morning, and I was like, right after that happened, and there was a moment in my head where I was like, this might be the last day I see my kids. And so I gave them a big hug. I gave them a big smile and told them I loved them and said, have a good day. But we forget regularly that those things can be taken away from us very quickly. And we need to regularly look at them and say, okay, this could be it right here. Let's make it a good one. And that, I think, that feeds back into not only relationships, but doing your best to get to the teams, doing your best to do you the best you can, because also, this is the other part of it, you could disappear just like that.
Well, you say regular, but what does regular mean? And I'm going to categorically state it. Regular means consistently every day, in my opinion. 100%. And so it's not even open to discussion how many times I hug my boys. I mean, too many maybe for some people, but a lot. And so and I tuck them in every night. I mean, since they've been babies, every night that I've been at home, I have tucked those boys. My son's 19 and a half. at the end of the night, like, I rub his head. We do our little secret handshake. Each boy's got a secret handshake. They should never cross streams. And so that's what I've done since they've been babies. Every night that I've been at home, I've taken the opportunity to do that. And that's not even me thinking, oh, what if they don't wake up in the morning, or what if I don't wake up in the morning? That is me creating a consistent subroutine that is now autonomous, that I don't have to even think about. It's triggered. It is part of my daily actions. Where you're dropping your kids off at school thinking, wow, I should hug my kids just in case. If you're thinking that, you ain't hugging your kids enough. If you're thinking that, you ain't tucking your boys in every single night. If you're thinking that, you ... You got to pick up the pace, make it an actual consistent routine every single day.
And it has been since. Once
Cool.
I made that recognition of like, I'm not doing enough. That's where everything kind of shifted, and I
Cool.
put all that effort into it. And now, and you know, what's funny? Kinley and I have a little secret handshake now.
As you should.
And I asked Arden about it, and he was like, "No, I don't really want a secret handshake." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Do you just want a hug?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll take a hug." And
That'll
then
change.
the funny thing is, the secret handshake for him, it's not really a secret handshake. Well, it kind of is, but anytime I give him a hug, he latches on and does like a seatbelt from the front, and then I have to like escape, get my way out, and then he giggles about it. He has a great time.
Yeah.
Tanya says, regular feedback loops imbued with ownership has helped me make incremental changes that add up. I think that's statement of the day.
It's good.
What do
It's
you think?
good. I like it, particularly since it used imbued.
Indeed. It's a very good one.
I'm gonna Google that.
So we're just sitting at an hour right now. Do you guys got any final thoughts on communication, on earning your spot, on anything else that we've talked about? Seb?
Not really, man. I think we've touched on a lot of really, really good concepts. What I like is there's some actionable things in there. Those things are not occurring by accident. They're decisions. Make the decision. You know, it's kind of like that cop out, you know, like, oh, my ADHD kicks in, I can't do this, or you know, I can't focus for more than 5 minutes. It's like, no, you can focus for more than 5 minutes, but you decide that you won't, and you then make an excuse for it. It's like, stop. You know, what do you have to implement right now? What do you have to change? Do it. Change something, not everything. A little thing, you know.
Small corrections. And I do love that. If I can't, I tell my boys this pretty regularly when they say I can't. I'm like, you can't breathe underwater. And they're like, well, you can wear a scuba. And I'm like, exactly, you can.
Exactly.
So you can, you just got to work at it. Shaun, any final thoughts?
No, good conversation today. Just want to thank you, Seb, for showing up,
Indeed.
spur of the
Appreciate
moment,
it.
of course, adding to the conversation, actually leading the conversation most of the time, I think. Come on, dude. I've got to give you the kudos. I got to make you feel uncomfortable. Thanks for showing up and bringing the heat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can see Shaun's still a little uncomfortable from when you gave him a little pat on the back earlier. So that's
Don't
why
like it. I haven't recovered yet.
He's all triggered. He's going to go outside. Got to go for a really hard ride now just to get rid of all
Hard
those
ride,
emotions.
hard BJJ.
Yeah, exactly. I had to, it's kind of interesting. I ripped half my fingernail off at jiu-jitsu yesterday, and was telling my boys about it because I was taking the tape off, and they're all like, oh, Dad, did you get hurt? And I was like, yeah, I did. And they're like, what happened? And I was like, well, I bent my fingernail halfway down and it just ripped right off. And he's like, oh, what did you do after? I'm like, I taped it and kept going. And that's part of the mentality too, is that there's going to be injuries, there's going to be hard times, there's going to be bad times, there's going to be things that happen that you don't really have control over. Tape it up, keep going. And that way you can learn, you can grow, you can build with us here on the collective every day. See y'all tomorrow. Chimo.
Chimo.